Oh, the XFL Talk is back, and we've got lots to go over right here for you here on XFL Talk. We've got lots of things discussing about new key QBs, quarterbacks that may be coming back, and we'll be looking at new head coaches for some of these teams just to kick things off. And we've got lots of other things to discuss right here on XFL Talk. So let's talk about it. Thank you guys for joining me back here once again for XFL Talk. It is the episode 8 right here for you. I hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful new year. It is the first, or it should be the first month. Yes, first month, January. It sounds crazy. All right. It is January 8th, 2021. It's so much craziness going on out there in the world. It's hard to kind of keep up with a lot of the things that's going on, but nevertheless, we're going to keep the ball rolling and we're going to keep things moving right along here. And it feels good to be back. It's been quite a long time since I've done XFL Talk. There has been a bunch of big news that has dropped. Some of you have gotten those news. Some of you have not. I won't go over every single last thing, but I'll go over quite a few things, including, my thoughts and opinions on what I think they can do to build up hype for the 2022 season of the XFL. I also want to talk about league expansions, key quarterbacks that will be coming back into the XFL, and we'll be looking at some obvious head coach changes, as we know that some of them may not return. So definitely, if you like what you're going to hear today, make sure you subscribe to my channel here at Desmond Dukes, and you can subscribe, like, share, comment, whatever you want to do on here. But just definitely make sure you hit that like button if you like what you see here. And thank you all once again for joining me. So let's go ahead and get right into this thing, shall we? The head coaching position in the XFL, there have been a number of changes. Now, obviously, we know who all of the original head coaches were. Bob Stoops was the head coach for the Dallas Renegades. You had Pep Hamilton, who was the coach of the DC Defenders. You also had June Jones, who was the coach of my team, the Houston Roughnecks. Then you had Winston Moss, who's also well known within the NFL realm. He was the coach for the Los Angeles Wildcats. And then you had a couple of them that, at first I wasn't really sure on, but these guys were, for the most part, for some of the seasons turned out really well. Some of them did not. But anyway, keeping up with the head coaches, Kevin Gilbride, who was the head coach of the New York Guardians. And then, of course, there was Jonathan Hayes, who was one of my favorite coaches for the St. Louis Battlehawks. Jim Zorn, who was the head coach of the Seattle Dragons. And last but not least, for the Tampa Bay Vipers, it was Mark Trestman. Some of these positions, I feel, for some of these head coaches, were pretty good. I know there's a couple of them that are planning on coming back. We've been hearing that June Jones wants to come back. We also know that Winston Moss comes back. Jim Zorn is also talking about coming back. But there are some quarterbacks, including Jonathan Hayes, he also wants to come back. So you got at least 4 or 5 head coaches that are looking at returning to their respective positions. We don't know about Bob Stoops yet. We heard he took a job possibly someplace back in the NCAA. I'm not sure if that's true or not. That would be interesting. But nevertheless, he's been actually wanting to come back as well, involving that situation. But I wanted to throw out there just a couple of candidates that I think would make good head coaches. At least for one has already got a lot of head coaching experience, but to see him in the XFL would be wonderful. And then, of course, this other person that I am going to suggest would be basically new to head coaching in general, as far as like being a head coach. So I'll read off these two, and then I'll go over some of their accolades, and then you guys can tell me down below what you guys think of those picks. So to kick things off, let's start with the obvious. I would say you definitely want to go with Jim Caldwell. Now, Jim Caldwell, I mean, we all know him from the Detroit Lions when he coached there. But here's some of the accolades that even I didn't know, which was pretty cool. He was a former head coach of Wake Forest University from 1993 to 2000. Former head coach of the Indiana Colts from 2009 to 2011, and former head coach of the Detroit Lions, which we already knew, from 2014 to 2017, which he was unceremoniously fired from. So I'm just going to call it like it was. But he has been a part of 2 Super Bowl winning teams. In the 2006, he was with the Colts, and then in 2012 with the Baltimore Ravens. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I didn't even know he had those accolades. Remember, I didn't keep up with a lot of the stuff that was going on in the NFL at the time. I just recently started watching it over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. So there's a lot of things that I missed. Now, Caldwell attended the University of Iowa, where he played all 4 years as a defensive back for the Hawkeyes. He was also an assistant coach at 6 different universities. I mean, just to name off a few, there was Illinois, there was Pennsylvania State, and it's crazy. Like, I didn't even know he did that much. And I do, and then if you want to go ahead and count Wake Forest too, being there for Wake Forest. But he was also the first African-American football coach in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And he was introduced into the, looks like, Omicron Delta Kappa, which that's pretty cool. And he coached for the Colts in 2010 with a 14-2 record when he was a rookie. So that's pretty awesome. After being released as the head coach of the Lions, he was unceremoniously fired. And he became a part of the consultant panel that addressed the rules that we've seen in the new XFL 2.0. So he's already got ties to the XFL. He's not really doing anything right now. I think this is an absolute fit for him. Now, what team would he go for? Well, obviously, we know some of those other coaches are coming back. So those teams are out of the question. But we're pretty sure that Kevin Gilbride will probably not come back for the New York Guardians. And we know Pep Hamilton's gone. He's actually the quarterback coach for the LA Chargers. So he's doing his thing there. So that frees up that spot. So where does he go? Does he go to New York or does he go to DC? Or if Bob Stoops decides he doesn't want to come back, maybe he can be down in Dallas. I can see that too. Jim Caldwell has got some options, and he does bring a culture and an experience to the game in which he could really, really, really put his stamp on. And he won't be so unceremoniously fired like when he was with the Lions. I had to bring it up again. I'm sorry. I think it was a travesty at that point. But nevertheless, Jim Caldwell, I think, would make a great head coach for one of those teams. And even if Mark Tristman decides he doesn't want to come back, I see him coming back. Maybe somebody else takes over. I don't know. But if he doesn't come back, give him a shot down in Tampa. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts. I think for Jim Caldwell, I think Dallas or New York will probably be the best bets for him. I can also see him with the DC Defenders. So that's something else entirely. But who knows? Who knows? I like this. I like him being in that coaching role. I was never like a huge fan of him when he was in Detroit because I felt like he never got excited about nothing. He was just like always like the calm guy in the corner kind of deal. But his coaching's been really good. It's not like super great, but it was really good. And he knows how to build good NFL teams. And with him, like I said, already having ties into the XFL, being a consultant as far as coming up with the new rules for the XFL, which for the most part, everybody enjoys. So I think that's a true testament. Now, he may continue to be part of a consultant. He may even be part of the league behind the scenes. But I think as a head coach, I can totally see him in this role. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how that turns out. Now, my next pick, this is one that's probably going to come out of left field for a lot of people. And I think this person deserves a shot, in my opinion, but that's just me. So I'm talking about the recently released from the 49ers offensive assistant coach, Katie Sowers. Now, Katie Sowers was an offensive coach with the 49ers from 2017 until basically just the other day. She had joined the NFL back in 2016, and she was originally, when she got into the NFL, she was a training coach for the Atlanta Falcons. So she was dealing with the training camps that was there. Now, keep in mind, Katie Sowers was the first female / gay female to be in the Super Bowl with a team. She's the first ever. So that's a true testament to how great she is. She started her career playing in the Women's Football Alliance. She played for, what team did she play for? It says it on here. I got so much notes. Well, I'll just say it when I get down to it. But nevertheless, she was born in Haskins, Kansas, back in 1986. She attended Haskins College and Goshen College in the 2000s before finishing at the University of Central Missouri and getting her master's in, what is that? Kinesiology? I can't even say it. It's some big major thing that she got in college. And that was back in 2012. She began her football ventures playing for the Western Michigan Mayhem. That's who it was. The Western Michigan Mayhem, when she played in the women's league, which was their pro league. Which was Western Mayhem. That was college. So Western Michigan Mayhem is the college team, and her pro team that she played for in the Women's Football Alliance was the Kansas City Titans. There we go. I got it figured out now. Reading my chicken scratching notes. She was also a player for the United States Women's National Football Team that won the 2013 IFAF Women's World Championship. So she has been in situations where she has become a champion. Sowers continued playing for the WFA until her retirement in 2016 due to a hip injury. She was hired by the 49ers in conjunction with the Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship Program, making her, the first openly gay woman to be a part of the NFL and get her team to a Super Bowl. So, with all of those accolades, I think she at least deserves a shot. She deserves a chance, because literally, with the coaching position that's being looked at down in here in Detroit, trying to find a Lions head coach, they're looking at the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, which he's a pretty big name. And everybody's talking about all these other people, but they've completely left her out. So I think this would be a good time, now that she's no longer with the 49ers, that the XFL can pick her up And I think this would be great. That I think it's a wonderful thing, an absolute wonderful thing. Oh, look at that. Yep. See, there you go. James Lyon agrees with me. But now the question becomes, what team should she coach for? I see her more head coaching the DC Defenders. I can totally see her doing that, basically taking over, because you would be passing the torch from Pep Hamilton to her because he was a pretty young coach himself. So I think sticking with that tradition of young coaches in the DC, into that DC atmosphere, that DC place, I would say go with that. And the Defenders, could use somebody, especially with her offensive background. She knows she can look for her own offensive coach that she knows could do the job. She can find a defensive coach that was just as good as the one that she was side by side with when she was with the 49ers. So she's got experience all over the place. I think at this point now, I think it's just about time she got a chance. So I really think that giving her this opportunity with DC, I think fits her well. I can also see her being a head coach for the Guardians or the Vipers too. So either one of those teams, if we know for sure those coaches aren't coming back, those were teams that I can totally see her with. Do I feel she's going to get that opportunity? I don't know. And this will be a great thing too, because XFL, first off, was the league that incorporated women referees, which was a plus, because now the NFL has women referees, which they've never really had before. And then you look at the fact that now that Danny Garcia basically owns the league, she could take that league and go outside the box and do what the NFL's not doing, what the CFL isn't really doing, and really capitalizing on opportunities for other women that could step in and take on that coach role. Because mainly we've only seen female coaches and FIFA, and even that's just in the women's game on top of that. So you figure if you do something like that, that would be a very, very cool thing. Yes. I think the Vipers, I think either the Vipers or DC, the DC Defenders or the Tampa Bay Vipers, I think would probably be the best picks for her in that situation. Like I said, New York wouldn't be bad either. You could even, go with Dallas, but I don't know. But for the most part, I think the Tampa Bay Vipers would be a great fit. But you guys let me know what you guys think down below as far as that goes with our head coaches. That's pretty much all I really had for head coaches. But I'm going to do some more research and look at some other potential coaches that could come back and coach these teams. That would be really cool to start kind of getting those things in place. But now, speaking of any type of returns, let's look at key quarterbacks. I mean, there's so many key quarterbacks that have really done well within the league that it's hard to dismiss the stuff that they do. And some of them have really, really taken a really, really great look at things from that perspective. So I'm going to bring up the stats of a lot of these QBs, because I think it's important to know where we stand with a lot of them. So if we're looking at just specifically quarterbacks, let's see, tackles. Here we go. All right. So with my quarterbacks in play, these are what we want to look at. I'm just setting my notes up on top because it's a little bit easier to see. So obviously we know PJ Walker is not coming back because right now he's still with Carolina. And I do believe he has a 2-year contract, I do believe. I'm pretty sure it's a 2-year contract. So I don't see him coming back. Now, Josh Johnson, who was the quarterback for the LA Wildcats, I could see him coming back. I mean, he had some pretty some pretty decent stacks. Threw for 1,076 passing yards, and had a 72% completing percentage. Or sorry, a 60% 60% completing percentage. So I think I can see Josh Johnson coming back. He actually is the second best quarterback in the XFL. I kind of think differently, but stats are stats, and I think he's done a tremendous job. So Josh Johnson, I can see coming back and playing for the Wildcats for another season. Kind of building up his brand, building up his talents a lot more. Let's see. We got Jordan Teamu, who was just signed to the Lions. So we don't know for sure what's going to happen with him as far as that goes. Oh yeah, Landry Jones. Yeah, he's on this list. I'm going to be getting to him here in just a minute. So yeah. But no, the other person I can see coming back is Taylor Cornelius. Now he was originally the backup quarterback for the Vipers, and then he became the main quarterback after Aaron Murray really wasn't able to come back after his injuries, and Cornelius kind of found his rhythm and started getting things going. But he had a smaller percentage of passing yards, which was 858, and he had a completion percentage of 63. So there's a lot for him to really build on as far as that goes. But he started coming into his own, so I can see him actually coming back and being that top QB for the Vipers. That's always a plus for him, because now that gives him more reps and that gives him more training and everything else to kind of get prepared to take on that main role. Because I believe Aaron Murray, had the season not ended as soon as it did, Aaron Murray probably would have come back and at least played, the rest of the season. But right now, I think Taylor Cornelius, being the type of guy that he is, and he's a big frame guy, he's a tall guy. So he can better observate the field versus a shorter guy like a PJ Walker at the time or something like that. So I can see him really coming back, and I think he would be a key person to come back because people know him now within the XFL. Landry Jones. This is a tough one because I started really liking Landry Jones until he got hurt again in that game with that Texas Throwdown game with them and the Roughnecks. So I don't know the situation with his leg. I mean, he had, for the short amount of time, because he missed the first week, I believe the first week or two of the actual games because of his knee, and then he started coming back into it. I believe it was just the first week. So I think with him coming back, I don't know. He kind of feels injury prone, but he did, for the short amount of time he was there, threw for 784 yards, and he had a 70% completion. So he's got the ability to do what needs to be done. But I think if he got his knee right and everything healed and not take too many risks, I think Landry Jones could come back. I don't know if he'll be like that key big name player for the Dallas Renegades anymore. But I mean, I'm willing to give him another season. We only played like part of half a season. So I think he deserves to have a full season shot before we actually make a determination on that one. Cardale Jones. Now, Cardale Jones was the quarterback for Ohio State back in his time, but I think he struggled those last few games. The first 2 weeks he did really well, and like the last couple of games he kind of fell like into a rut at that time. So that's when I think it was I don't know why I was thinking Kari Lee, but there was another Lee that was on the DC Defenders who took over for those next couple of games. But I think Cardale Jones now, with having this much time, I think this will work for him. I think this will work for him very, very well. And I like the fact that Cardale Jones was kind of that key quarterback for the DC Defenders. And I think he should definitely stay with the DC Defenders. I think there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think there's still a lot of work that he can really build on with that team. And I think that team fits him well, in my opinion. I think the DC Defenders team really works well for him. So I definitely see Cardale Jones staying in that realm. Now, will he come back? I don't know, but I would like for him to come back. And plus, he's kind of a bigger name, at the time of him starting. So I think with him coming back, getting those reps in and being like that powerhouse quarterback that, he started off with, those, especially if he would have kept going the way he did the first couple of weeks, where he was just on this tear and he was looking like he was going to be like an absolute running against PJ Walker for the MVP spot. And he was definitely like that second guy up. If it wasn't for those last couple of games. But Cardale Jones coming back for DC, I think he should. Now, Brandon Silvers. Brandon Silvers is a quarterback that I actually seen coming into his own, and that the Seattle Dragon were really starting to pick things up. I think in that very last game where they had PJ Daniels come in and take over for him at that time. PJ Daniels is another great quarterback. But yeah, Brandon Silvers, he had a 52% completion percentage and only threw for 539 yards. So I don't think like it's something that they could really, really, I guess, pull off. But that depends on if he wants to come back. So Brandon Silvers is one of those guys. I think he still has a lot of life left in him as far as wanting to be that head quarterback position. Because I know, like I said, those last few games, they had PJ Daniels take over as the main QB, as a starter QB for those last couple games. And PJ Daniels is really dynamic. Whereas Brandon Silvers is kind of a pocket guy, So I don't know. I like Brandon Silvers, but I think with that passing percentage, I don't know. Maybe he can get that up in the next season if he plays. But I do think he would be a key person to come back for on that team. Now Philip Nelson. Now he was the backup quarterback for the Dallas Renegades when Landry Jones went down. Philip Nelson, I wasn't really like feeling him that well. I think they can do better. I think Dallas could definitely do better. But he did have a 66% completion percentage, and he threw for only 439 yards though. But that was only because of the short amount of time that he's played. So I give him that. But I think there's something to be said when Philip Nelson goes into that game and he's not quite there at that time. So maybe now he's better during this whole thing of them being off because of COVID. Maybe he found a way to get in some reps and kind of, like work on his throws and his accuracy somehow, some way. I don't know, but I definitely can still see him coming back. And I think he would be a key person. Now, if Landry Jones doesn't come back, I definitely see Philip Nelson coming back as that lead QB for that team. But we'll just have to wait and see where it goes from there. Louis Perez. So Louis Perez, a guy who not really is like super quarterback savvy. Like he only really learned to play quarterback from watching YouTube videos or something from what we told. But he really changed the the atmosphere of that team when he was out there playing versus Matt McGroin, who was the original starter QB for the New York Guardians. I think Luis Perez really brought something different, and his attention to detail when he throws is actually really good. He's not a deep passer, but he's an accurate passer. Luis Perez, he only had a completion percentage of 62%, which is not bad, and because he threw for completed 38 for 61, and he only threw for 418 yards. So I gotta say, Luis Perez looks like he could be the starter for the New York Guardians. I think he would be one of those players that could definitely thrive in that league. I don't see him really going to the NFL anytime soon. So I think if he's going to play for the XFL, go ahead and get like a deal in place where you could play for multiple years. And then you could be, you literally could be like the main headpiece, the star for that team that everybody comes out in droves to watch. If he can, continue to put himself out there, get his completion percentage up higher, and really continue to make key plays as he did in those last few games where the New York Guardians started picking up wins again. So I like that pick. I think he should definitely return. Matt McGroin, I don't see Matt McGroin coming back as the quarterback for the New York Guardians. I don't see it. I think he would be one guy that they would pass up. Now, he only had a 53% completion percentage and threw for 310 yards, but a number of bad passes, a number of interceptions, a lot of turnovers. I mean, the guy got off camera and just went kind of on a little tangent. So I'm not saying he's like an incredibly bad quarterback, but he's a bad quarterback. So I think having him sit out and have Luis Perez take over, I think, I would put Matt McGroin, if he does come back, I would put him in the backup position. I think that's where he needs to be. But that depends on how much better he can improve during the time as they, start to get back into training and things like that, possibly later on in the year. Aaron Murray, I don't really see him coming back for the Vipers, so I'm not too worried about that. So that would be, it is what it is. But I can definitely see him coming back as a consultant for the team, or maybe playing a role, because I know he does analyst work for CBS. So maybe he comes back, maybe plays an offensive coordinator. I can see him doing that. He's with his experience as a quarterback. I think him being in that offensive coordinator position, I think he can bring an interesting dynamic. He knows the play calls, under Mark Trustman's guidance, and he can kind of take those and kind of run with it. So that I can see. But as him coming back for a quarterback, I just don't really see that. Now, he did only have, for the short amount of time before he got hurt and was replaced with Tyler Cornelius, he only had a 47% completion percentage and threw for 231 yards. So, it is what it is. Let's see. Chad Kasnoff, him as a QB for the LA Wildcats, I don't see him coming back either. I really don't. I think Josh Johnson is the real deal for that team. I think he's the true star for that team. I think Chad could still be in that. He could play backup for Josh, but he had a 47% completion percentage. A 54% completion percentage, and only threw for 214 yards. With a completion passing rate of 21/39. So not super great, but him, because when he first started, he was the lead, and then he ended up playing kind of backup. So I think playing backup works better for him in that aspect. PJ Daniels, I feel should be the starting quarterback, even over Brandon Silvers. I like Brandon Silvers, but PJ Daniels coming in, who was the backup and then kind of taking over when Brandon Silvers was out, PJ Daniels really brought a different dynamic to the Seattle Dragon team as their quarterback. He had a 58% completion percentage and only threw for 214 yards, but he only played in like 2 full games. So if he's getting that type of percentage over just 2 games, and he still had a lot left in the tank, I think that deserves a little bit of something. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Marquise Williams for the New York Guardian. He only had a 48% completion percentage and 145 yards passing. He didn't get a lot of playing time. I think he was more of the 3rd string, or maybe he was the 2nd string and then dropped. I think with him, because I think Louis was the 3rd string and Marquise was the 2nd string. But Marquise Williams, I think should move or stay in the position where he was at as far as 2nd string, but have Louis move up to that top string, because I think Louis had a lot more to bring to the table than Marquise did. Marquise, I mean. So I would stick with that plan, still have him as a backup if he's willing to do it, or he can switch teams and probably, go and be a quarterback, for another team. But I can see him still staying in New York for, as a backup quarterback. But those are kind of my picks, you guys. You guys let me know what you think of that. I personally feel that I think that's something huge as far as bringing a lot of these QBs back. And that is something that I would like to see. And that gives them more reps. It gives them more time. Even if some of them eventually get called up to the NFL, I think for now, having them start and being in the XFL, let them getting in a couple more years, I think will really do wonders for them. So this is the next thing I want to talk about, is the actual league expansions. Now, we said some of these quarterbacks, may not play for these teams anymore, but there's that potential of new teams coming in for the XFL. Now, right now, according to the list of states, there are 26 states that do not have NFL teams. Now, looking at it from that perspective, this is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for the XFL to really, really cash in on going after states that don't have NFL teams and really capitalizing on those states. Even though St. Louis didn't have a team, but the state has a team in the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think with them going the route that they went in of having the St. Louis Battlehawks, I think that's a true testament. So it really depends on the location. But I think for these 26 states, you definitely want to bring in an XFL Pro team that not only will get that state excited, but can also bring in revenue for that state. Because some of these states do have stadiums. They could use the college stadiums. I think that's a wonderful thing about the XFL. You don't have to go and get these big NFL stadiums, but you could get a good-sized college stadium and then just fill that thing up, because they don't have anybody but college teams, and that's it. So a couple of states that I think they should really look at. Obviously, we know Birmingham, Alabama is looking at getting a team in the XFL. Do I see these teams coming in 2022? No. But I think if they get the ball rolling now and getting them ready for 2023, as I said in one of my previous episodes, I think this would be absolutely fantastic for the XFL. Because you want to start this league off with your original 8 teams to start with. Because you want to begin to now that it's basically 3.0, you want to rebuild revenue. And with these teams wanting to be in the XFL, this brings more revenue in for the XFL. So you don't want to rush it too quick. Let's just get through these original 8 teams and actually make it to a championship. Then we can discuss bringing in these other teams. But if there were 2 states that I can think of that I believe should get an XFL team, obviously we said, Alabama with Birmingham, getting a Birmingham XFL team. Birmingham loves their football. And when they had a team with the last spring league that didn't do well, but they started to have decent crowds. I mean, they were getting, 9, 10, 12,000 people in there. I think their biggest one, I think they had somewhere around like 13 or 14,000. So that's a good number. I think with the XFL, they've had solid anywhere between 12 and 18,000 people in like the smaller stadiums. But they've had teams like the Seattle Dragon and the St. Louis Battlehawks who are doing 20, 25, 30,000 people. And I said in one of my previous episodes that the St. Louis Battlehawks, their next home game, they were looking at doing anywhere between 50 and 60,000 plus, because they were literally opening up that second that second level for those games. And I know Seattle would have done the same thing because they started getting record numbers of attendance as well for those smaller venues. And both of those, along with some of the other ones, have been selling out. But typically, XFL games have held pretty steady between 12 and 15 plus. So, and I think with them getting a team like Birmingham, Alabama into it, I think that would be a really, really cool thing. Now comes the second team. Now, this was probably going to come out of left field because I didn't think about this beforehand. But if I wanted to go with a team that I feel would be great for an XFL team, I would have to say Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is that next big thing because they don't have an NFL team at all. They got an NBA team, but have no NFL team. So if you bring in an XFL team into one of those, into the Oklahoma Stadium, or even Oklahoma State Stadium, and then you could fill that bad boy up. I mean, Oklahoma loves its sports. So if you can get that one filled up, I think those are your two best bets for state-wise as far as getting an XFL team, because you want to come back in 2023 with at least two XFL teams, because you don't want to have just one, because then it'll be too uneven. So if you do two XFL teams, keep things even, that gives you a solid 10 teams for a 10-week season. And I think that would work out very, very well. If there was a third and a fourth expansion, later on down the road, maybe, after like another 2 or 3 years, added another two teams. I think that would be the formula for the XFL, is that you have an expanded team every couple of years. So if you bring in two teams in 2023, don't bring in any more teams until 2025, 2026. And then continue to expand on that. And then you can have like a nice roster of teams, but you want to go after the teams with states that don't have NFL teams at all. And the reason why I say that is because these states are hungry for teams. I mean, this list has like New Hampshire, Nebraska, Maine, Kentucky, Hawaii, Connecticut, Arkansas. These are a lot of states that could use great pro teams and have colleges that fills their stadiums up. So why not only fill up the college stadiums? Let's fill up the pro stadiums too. And in those markets, the XFL can capitalize and really build upon that, building up that revenue, having people buy more of the merch, going to these games, buying season tickets. These are things that the XFL could really, really capitalize on as far as that goes. But yeah, there's a lot of states on here. I mean, a lot of states: Wyoming, both Virginias, West and regular Virginia, Vermont, Utah, South Dakota, South Carolina, Rhode Island, Oregon, New Mexico. There's so many different states that the XFL could capitalize on, because we know for a fact right now the NFL is not expanding teams. They're not expanding their league. They're at 32 and they're staying at 32 for a good little while. So I think this is a good opportunity for the XFL to really capitalize on these states that are not being picked on by the NFL and really bringing those teams in, because now the NFL later on, when they see the expansions happening, they're like, okay, we need to expand ours. So they'll start going after different states as well. So with the XFL doing that, I think that would be an absolute wonderful thing for them. But you guys let me know what you think down below. Do you think the XFL could expand on some of these states that the NFL hasn't capitalized on? And when do you think they should step up and really bring those teams into the league, bring them into the league's family? But you guys let me know that down below, because I am genuinely thinking of how you guys feel about that. Because when you look at it from this perspective, if you can do what needs to be done to build up, more hype for the XFL, that's how you want to do it, is getting those teams expanded, building up the fan base, building up the attendance, building up the viewership. This is what will help the XFL, because, more times than not, if you have a team within that state, more people will watch because they're from that state and they're being represented on national television. So they're going to want to support those teams. They're going to want to support, that league, because that league is doing something that other leagues are not doing. So I think the XFL would be doing an absolute wonderful thing for the community of states. Which brings me to my final query of the day. So with the XFL coming back in 2022, how do we build the hype? How do you rebuild the hype for the new 2022 season? And it's actually quite simple. You do what everybody else has done before, and you do what is necessary to build up the hype. Because it'll be nearly a year and a half before anybody has ever really seen an XFL game. There are probably lots of people out there who have not seen it, or haven't seen certain games, or don't really know about the XFL because they had no interest in it. And then, people were told them about it and they're like, oh, well, I missed it then. So one of the key things in building up hype for the new 2022 season is to play all the games from last season. I think that's what you do. I think that's what you do if you were in the business of building your brand. Get people aware of that brand. Yes, there may be some differences compared to 2.0 that you're going to do in 3.0, but the majority of everything that has stuck, we know for a fact will stay in place. So what I mean by all of that is the XFL was played on Fox, FS1, ESPN, and ABC. So if you want to, out of those respected channels, or you can kind of switch things up, you do replays of all 20 games from those 5 weeks. You play 2 games a week for 10 weeks. That's how you build that up. That's how you get the name out there. You don't have to go crazy, but if you do one game, like one game on Saturday, one game on Sunday, and make them evening games, or especially evening games after, but you don't want to do it during the NFL. You want to do it after the NFL. So after the Super Bowl is when you want to start, okay, let's start putting these games in place. We'll start with week 1. We'll play week 1 for about 2 weeks, and then we'll play week 2 for 2 weeks, week 3 for, a couple weeks, and so on and so forth. You build on those and you create hype. You let people know we're going to be replaying these XFL games, so that people who either didn't get to see it or was curious about it but still didn't watch it are now given an opportunity to check it out. Now, I have all of the games on my YouTube channel. So I generally go back and watch those games, but I would like to watch them on TV regularly just to be a supporter. And I think that's how you rebuild the hype. I think that's what you do to get people to be like, you know what? I remember this league and it was really good. I thought they were going to be gone, because there's some people that still don't know that it's even coming back. So to help rebuild the hype and rebuild that fan base, you get with these networks and be like, hey, we want to do replays of all of our games. Now, if FS1 doesn't want to do certain games, you can put those on regular Fox, because they're all the same brand. Same thing with ESPN and ABC. I don't have ESPN. I have a better chance of getting ABC. So I think Fox and ABC, respectively, playing both of those, I think would probably be the best decision. So, and those games were kind of divided. So, again, respectively, you could play one game on Saturday, one game on Sunday, have them both be evening games that start probably around like 6 or 7 o'clock. Okay. You could be done by like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And, that would be the way to go. But I think that's how you can help rebuild hype for the XFL and getting people prepared for that 2022 season, because it's now 2021. You can build 10 weeks off of that. Then as those 10 weeks are going, now people are excited. They want to know who's coming back. They want to know, what the league's going to do in 2022, and it makes them hungry to want to see more of those games. So I think that's one aspect that you can do to rebuild the XFL league. The second thing I would do is start building up advertisements. I think going after advertisements and sponsorships along with networks, because you'll get the networks. The networks will come. The ratings for the networks weren't super, super great, but what they did attendance-wise really helped a lot of those. So I think what you do at that point is that you get sponsorships, you get advertising put out to let people know we're coming back. So I think the best time to do that would be during like a basketball season or an NFL season, depending on what networks are going to pick this thing up. Because we know Fox wants it back. We've heard rumors that Fox wants it back. We don't know about ABC. So what they could do is that they could do advertisements on Fox, and there's a possibility that CBS may pick them up, which would be another huge thing. So then you can get some on CBS as well for the 2022 season. So I think really going after all of those things, I think will really, really help as far as rebuilding the seasons and getting that word out there. Another thing would be getting a lot of the guys that really helped contribute, a lot of the commentators that really helped. And when they did, when they were doing their commentary for these XFL games, get them out there to speak about the XFL, during the NBA or the NFL season, because when the NFL season restarts again, have them bring it up from time to time. Hey, just want to let y'all know the XFL is coming back. And I had, make it almost like a question, like, what did you think of the XFL? And you I thought it was great. And I'm actually excited that the XFL is coming back in 2022. I think you start building that through word of mouth, through these analysts, which a lot of people listen to the analysts and the commentators. So once you get them on your side to speak highly about the XFL, that right there will help push, people to be like, oh, well, if they like the XFL, maybe I should give it a shot. And I think that's one of those things. Now, you don't want to go through some commentators who kind of belittled the XFL and treated it like it was a garbage, league, which it wasn't. It was not a garbage league because it was doing pretty well. If COVID hadn't hit, I think it would have continued to do well. I mean, merch sales were high. Attendance sales were really high. In fact, they exceeded expectations on both. So the XFL has got legs. So now you need to turn, I guess how The Rock put it, or Dwayne Johnson put it, we're going to turn a $15 million business into a $100 million business in one season. That's the goal. And I believe they can do it, because just in that half a week span, the league itself made nearly $40 million, like total, with merch sales, attendance sales, things like that. They've made nearly $40 million. That's like an increase to what their projections were, which they were only looking at anywhere between 15 and 22. So that is a huge, huge thing. And I think that will help out considerably. But you guys tell me what you think. What are some ideas that the XFL could do to really help rebuild the league? You guys let me know in the comment section below of that. Well, anyway, thank you guys for joining me. We got quite a bit talked about. I will be returning with some more news, rumors, and information in the upcoming days for the XFL. But thank you guys so much for joining me here today. I will see you all next time. Have a good night.